Welcome to a short demonstration of Hold My Beer, or HMB for short. HMB is a mobile application designed for single-person handyman businesses. All the data is stored on the mobile phone, hence you can't share it with another worker. HMB is a jobs-based application, so let's go through and actually have a look at how you create a job and how you use HMB. So let's create a job, which is basically build stairs. So we need to create a customer. There are customers in the system, so let's create a brand new customer. John Smith. We can set up a default hourly rate we charge the customer, or we can just use the system to default hourly rate. So let's save the customer. Customers now can have multiple contacts on multiple sites. So let's create a customer contact like John Smith. If we've got his mobile number, we can put that in. By putting his mobile number in, we can actually use a click to dial feature within HMB. You can see here, if I click on the call button, it gives me a couple options. I can call the customer, I can copy the phone number into my clipboard, I can send an email from HMB as well. So we've created our customer, back to the job. Customer's already selected. Now, the status, basically, jobs go through a series of states as you go as the job progresses. We start as prospecting. Once the customer accepts it, we make it to be scheduled. We're actually going to put a quote together, put the state into quoting. So, an hourly rate for the customer, $70. The booking fee, basically, we have a once-off booking fee that you can optionally charge a customer each time they book a new job. Billing type is critical. So we've got two types of billing types: time and materials and fixed price. Time and materials is sometimes referred to as cost plus, where we're billing a customer for the time we spend plus materials we buy, possibly with a margin. Let's go through time and materials initially. We enter a description. This might be some text the customer emailed you or sent via text, or it may be from a discussion you had on the phone, whatever you need to record here to give you a reminder of what the job's about. So we just need to select the specific contact and site for this job, remembering, we didn't create a site, remembering that we don't actually, remembering that we can create multiple contacts and sites for a customer. So a job is really a job for a particular customer at a particular site. Let's just create a site while we're here. Ken Smith. Smithton. Save and close that. All right, so a job then is made up of a series of tasks. Tasks is just a way to actually help us manage the job and keep track of all the different aspects of the job. So in this case, we are, what are we building here? We're building steps. So we need to order timber would be one of the tasks we need to do. We need to build the steps. And we need to paint the steps. So we've got the basic tasks. Now there might be some items we need associated with those tasks. For instance, we need to purchase timber, we need to purchase paint. So we can go into the actual order timber and we can actually create some items. So in this case, if I click the right button, we can say we need some timber, 90 by 45, treated pine. And we need to buy that. So the different item types: materials buy, material stock. Basically, as we add items to a task, we're building a shopping list and a packing list. If we select materials buy, then will be added to our shopping list. Material stock says it's in the shed. We just need to pack it before we head off to the customer. In this case, we're going to buy these materials. So we need 10 pieces. The length is going to be 3,800. HMB, when you configure it, can either run in metric or imperial. I've got the system set up for metric, obviously. So 10 lengths at 3,800, and we save that. And what else have we got? So we've now set up that. So paint, we also need to buy some paint. So we'll put in our list of items, some paint. We're going to take 4 litres of it. Materials buy again. Quantity 1. We don't know what the cost is, so we won't enter that at the moment. We may also have some items we want to pack. So in fact, when we build the steps, We might have a specialized tool we need to don't normally have it in our van. We need to actually pack. Impact driver, of course, we wouldn't normally have that in our van, would we? But in case it's a specialized tool, we go materials, tools own, which actually is building up a packing list. We'll look at it in a minute. All right, so we've created tasks, we've added items of those tasks. The next thing is, because it's time and materials, is we want to go and actually pack the van and or go shopping. So we've now looking at our packing list, and I've obviously chosen the wrong setting for the impact driver. It didn't appear in my packing list because the job hasn't been approved. So we actually need to go out and actually change the job status, because if we're going to pack it, it means it's been approved. So at some point the customer says it's been approved. So we change it to in progress, basically. So now if we go back to our packing list, we can see our impact driver has turned up because it's our job's now in progress. So as we go down to the shed, we can just mark an item as being completed. You can put a cost. So for instance, you may want to charge a cost for some use of some specialized tools to the customer. In this case, we don't charge them for the impact drivers. You just mark the job as complete. The other thing you can do is when you're packing this, I've gone past it now, but there's actually a shopping cart icon there. We actually move an item from packing list into your shopping list when you realise that you don't actually have the tool or the material in your shed that you thought you did. If we go to our shopping list, having arrived at the hardware store, we can actually go through, and as we shop, we can record the amount that it costs us for each items. So let's say we paid $40 for this, and there's 10 of them. So what we're doing here is we're actually building our invoice at this point. The items that we use, that we've purchased, that come into our shopping list, will actually go into our invoice when we go to invoice this particular project. So we've bought our hardware, we've bought our paint. So now we've purchased everything, we've packed our tools. When we're on the job, we need to track our time. So we can go into a task and actually say, okay, we're going off to order our timber. We can start the timer. We're starting at 10 o'clock this morning, and save our job. And we'll see now we've got a task timer running. We can stop the task timer by clicking the stop button. But more regularly, what you're going to do during the day is switch from task to task. So having ordered the timber, we get back and we start building the steps. So we start the step timer. The first thing it's going to do is say, hey, you need to stop the existing timer. You can only run one task timer at a time. So we stop that at 10:10, and we start the new timer at 10:11. So having tracked our times now, so let's stop that task timer. We'll put a fictitious forward date just so we've got some time in here. All right, so now we've had items that we've bought and we've actually timed, we've tracked. It's now time to actually create an invoice for the customer. So we go into billing, invoices, and we can create a brand new invoice for the job we've just finished. So you get to choose what things are going to appear on the invoice, typically everything. We now have our invoice created, and we can do several things. We can send the invoice to the customer. So when we're going to send the invoice to the customer, we can choose the level of detail that appears in the invoice. We get a PDF out of that, and you can't see it, but there's a little email icon under that debug button, which if I click on that, because we enter the email address, hit send, it'll send this invoice off to the customer. We can also, if you've got the Xero accounting package, you can upload this invoice into Xero, so your bookkeeper now has access to that, and you can track payments, etc. You can also individually edit individual items in the invoice before you send it off. So that's sort of the round trip for a time and materials job. Let's have a look at a fixed price job, because that's a little bit different how we do that. So this one we're going to build a deck. Actually, we're going to paint a room. So we can choose our existing customer. We're going to choose the billing type as fixed price. We still enter an hourly rate for fixed price because it basically helps us do our estimates. So let's put an hourly rate in at $75. We're still going to have a booking fee. We can enter some description, choose the contact and the site for this particular job, save the job, and now we can add some tasks to the job. So task again is going to be order paint, and another task is going to be paint room, and finally we'll have a cleanup task. So you can now go through and build out the elements of this quote from the job screen, but it's a little tedious. And so what we have is a separate estimator view of the job. So it's the same job, the same task, it just gives us a different way of viewing it, which is optimized to help us enter costs into the system. So you can see here we've got the same task, order paint, paint room, clean up room. So again, we're adding items to those tasks like we did earlier, but in a little more visually flat mode, if you like. So what are we doing with? The first task is basically order paint. So add item, we're going to have to buy some paint. So it's materials buy. And again, this is building our shopping list up. Our estimated cost. Now, because it's fixed price, the estimated cost is what's important here, not the actual cost. You can record when you purchase and confirm that you've purchased something through the shopping list. You can put your actual cost in here, but we are quoting, so we need to have estimated costs up front. So it's going to cost us $40 to get 4 litres of paint. But there's also some labour associated with ordering the paint. We've got to go to the hardware store and buy paint. So we might say buy paint. So there's a special item type for tracking labour, which we use for fixed price jobs. So when we track labour, we either enter via a dollar amount or an hours. We're going to choose hours. Estimated hours is 2.5. And because we put in earlier the cost per hour, it's automatically calculated that. We could put a margin here. We normally use the margin though for when we're buying items like paint. So let's save that. So in fact here, we put in here that we thought the cost is going to be $40. Well, it's probably sensible to put a 20% margin on that. So the charge to the customer is now going to be $48. So paint room is going to be all labour. So labour to paint the room. Though we might actually break that down. It might help us think about it, which is like, mask room. So that's going to be a labour type, and so it's going to be, say, 1.5 hours to mask off the room. And then we're going to have paint room. So you can see how by using these, adding individual items, it just helps you think about the estimation process by breaking it down to smaller parts. And the estimate builder makes that easier to actually go through and see that what you've done and easily work out if you've missed anything. You can see at the top here, basically it's giving you summaries, the net total now of labour, the materials costs, cleanup, maybe we need to buy some terps. So it's materials buy again, a bottle of terps, let's say it's going to cost us $10 and we're going to put a 15% margin on that one. Okay, cleanup, of course there's some labour to clean up. Choose labour again, and we reckon it's going to cost us 1.5 hours of time to labour to clean the room. Okay, so now we can quickly see here we've got, okay, we're ordering the paint, we're buying the paint, yeah, that looks about right. We need to paint the room, that makes sense. So we can see quickly that we've actually got all the components that make up our job estimate. So we've finished putting our estimates together. We now need to actually create a quote from those estimates and send it to the customer. So again, we can choose what's going to be included in the quote. And if we now go to our quote screen, under billing, quotes, we've got a brand new quote in the system. We can see the details of that. We can now basically send that quote off to the customer. Again, like the invoicing, we can choose the level of detail that appears in that quote. And again, we click on the email button and send the quote off to the customer. So the customer comes back through and has accepted the quote. We should go through to the jobs and change the status. We should have set that to quoting, which has now been basically setting this to in progress or to be scheduled is probably where you want to be at this point. So if we go back to billing and quotes, what we've done now is we've agreed to the customer in terms of how they're going to make payments. We're going to create milestones for those payments. We could, if they want to pay it complete up front, we could just invoice the quote right now. But often you'll have a milestone type arrangement. So we're going to have 3 milestones with this particular job. So the milestone is going to be a 30% payment up front. Save that. Then there's going to be so on signing, we might call that payment. And then basically start of job might be our next milestone, which is going to be again another 30%. And then completion of job. Save that. Now you see here the system says, hey, your totals aren't right because obviously this needs to be 40%. Save that. And we can now see we've got all the milestones for each part of our job. Having created the milestones now, we can actually see our milestones to the milestone screen, go into it, and then we can invoice those milestones as we go. So click, and we've now just created an invoice for that first milestone. And again, as before, we can send that milestone to the customer, choosing our level of detail, click the email send button, and we just send off our first invoice. When it comes to the next one, same process, we go to the next milestone, and again, that same process, we create the invoice and send it off to the customer. So that's basically the core bits in terms of how we do jobs, create quotes, do estimates, send invoicing. There's a couple extra little features in here in terms of tools. We actually have the ability to create a tool register. We can create a tool, add a tool to our tool register, which can be a really helpful process for insurance purposes. I know most of us probably haven't tracked our tools. It's an important thing to do. So we can just create tools, select the supplier, manufacturing, serial number, the warranty period, the cost of the tool, and the date purchased. And then we can also, again, I can't do this on my desktop, but if you're on a mobile phone, you can capture pictures of the tools and the serial number for your records. And of course, we've got a stock take wizard, which is the same process, but it just drives you through adding tool after tool after tool, which is just a more efficient way than adding individuals one at a time. So that's it for the moment. There's lots of other features in here, but they're the core pieces that basically let you run an entire single person handyman business. Hope you enjoyed the recording. Cheers.